We are hopefully live. Good evening, everybody, and welcome.
Hello, everybody. How is everyone?
I'm hoping we're live. Is the audio good for you all? I hope so.
We should find out. I haven't seen us go live over here. Oh, wait. Oh, there's me. I know that guy.
Oh, see, I can monitor it, but I don't see what's actually going live.
Yep.
So hopefully all good. I hope you're all doing wonderful this evening. How have you been, Jan?
I've been well. How have you been, Jan? No, you're not, Jan. How have you been, Mikey?
I got completely in a chocolate coma yesterday.
Sounds amazing.
It was not.
It sounds.
I'll tell you what.
I haven't eaten chocolate in a little while now.
Well, my tummy did not agree. Indigestion through the roof. I was sat there going, "This chocolate's so nice. I'm in so much pain. Oh, but it's so nice. Let me have another bit."
Why is? Oh, here we go. YouTube was saying 6 waiting. Like now it says 2 watching. Hello, everyone. There was more people than that a minute ago. Yeah, I've not eaten chocolate in a few weeks. I miss chocolate.
Send chocolate to Jan.
Yeah, I need one of those, World War I care packages.
Yes, with some Kendall mint cake in there as well.
Kendall mint cake, yes.
Solid
Today, Jan and Mikey
sugar.
are going to talk about early 20th century snacks. Humbug.
Bah. No, we've had a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun over the Easter break. Took the kids to the seaside, and they buried themselves, hoping they would grow.
Did it work?
I tried to escape. They
wait in the sand.
Yeah.
Have they seen many crops growing in the sand?
I failed to point out the fact that the beach was barren of all life, but there we go. It works. They're happy. Yep. I'm happy. They're happy. And yeah, and then we had a lot of chocolate, as I've already mentioned. So we've been playing around today. I've been playing with what you didn't see earlier, and this will all become clearer in a moment. I played with wonky eyes, and I played with some makeup. And I also, yes, on the model. And I also played with googly eyes, but I couldn't get the physics to work, unfortunately.
I didn't know if these were like Blender plugins. Like,
well, they totally should be.
They should be. The wonky eyes from Canopy Games.
Yes. Googly
It just takes your camera and goes. Yeah.
Yes, I was playing around earlier. So I had the hair really uniform. You've probably seen the long hair and the short hair version.
They don't know what we're talking about.
No, of the character.
We should start at the beginning.
Yeah, go on then.
Okay. So Mikey and I were talking about current and future courses and ways to get the community involved and things we can do to help out with various, communities that we're involved in. And one of the things we came up with was we always need more assets. And there are some really good free and open source assets out there. But because they're designed to work with a whole bunch of different systems and they're done usually in someone's spare time, there's a lot of issues with using them in a game. In the sense that, for instance, if I'm using Coturnius' assets, they don't all use the same armatures. So I'll have to go in manually and start writing scripts or changing animations or polishing things up so they're working Godot.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but it's not exactly plug and play. So we started thinking, well, why don't we start working on some asset packs? The idea being, go on.
I was going to say one of the biggest things with asset packs, when you pick them up from here, there, and everywhere, is that they often need quite a bit of work to all work together. But also visually, they can also be very disparate from one another, and they don't look like they belong in the same world, and that's a big problem.
Yeah, and a lot of them all use FBX, for example, as a format, which is kind of supported by Godot, and the FBX support is getting better. But I'm not a huge fan of FBX as a format, right? It's okay. It's certainly better than OBJ, but it's not great for what we need.
It's a format that I think has just come to the forefront and stayed there.
It was in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
So the idea we had was, why don't we see if we can make a prototype of a rigged character where we can swap out various elements, and they still use the same rig, and they'll still work. And we can use that as a framework to start building an actual asset pack, a way that we could say, okay, here's a fully rigged character that will work, and here are some various clothing or body types or whatever it is, or skin textures or whatever it might be, that we could put in. And then later on, if we need to, we can add more animations to the pack or to different packs, and you can drop in, for instance, the sword animation pack. We don't have this yet. This is all very theoretical.
But very exciting. So over the weekend, we've basically had what I'd call a mini project jam, not a game jam as such, because there wasn't a game output at the end of it. An asset jam. There we go. That's what it was. So yeah, at the end of this asset jam, we've got a little few things to show you. I can show some stuff over in Blender as well, but I think we should show what we've been working on.
I want to be very clear. Mikey's been working very hard and got me the polished, like he showed me some very, very early draft stuff earlier, which is what the screenshot for this was. And this says, I'll get you the things before we go live. And he did, but he has, a house full of kids and all the other things to worry about. So he got them to me like 20 minutes before we went live. So I was like, okay, let me see if I can
live. It's fine.
Let me see if I can put something together in the 20 minutes before we go live. So this is not the high quality mark of my work. Don't hate me. Okay.
Well, let me go full screen so that everybody can see what you're sharing.
So what I have here is a character who's got long hair and a robe, and this is Cube Dude Kickabout levels of control, right? There's no animation tree player. I didn't have time. But I can sprint and go to the next animation and walk. The short hair isn't quite rigged yet, but, early prototype. I can switch between these two sets at will. They use the same rig. They're all ready to go. And we have a very, very, very simple rigged character. Only 2 animations. There's only a walk and a run. So right now there's no idle state or anything like that.
There's no blending at the moment either, is there?
There's no blending. No. I mean, I can show you what I've got if you like.
Hey, it's cleared up. I can actually read it. Nice.
Okay, so if we look at the character, what we have is a series of mesh things. I've actually extracted the hairs as external scenes, and we can, for instance, just hide one and put the other one in. Because of the way they're made, in Godot we call them skins, but they're basically the information of how the mesh responds to each bone. So in Blender, you call this weighting, right? Vertex weighting.
Yeah.
This cloak knows that its skeleton is here, and this is the skin data it works. And as long as it's in the right place, in this skeleton, it'll just work, right? So whatever animation you throw into this, it will just work. And if I switch out all the other stuff, that's great. So in the actual scene, I've added in the hairs as exported scenes, just to show this can be done.
Yeah.
And then I've written the silliest script. I mean, this, 20 minutes. The silliest script that I am not happy with, but works, right? So I am looking the direction I'm going in, but there's only 8 directions you can go in. There's no lerping. There's none of this smooth motion. It's Cube Dude Kickabout levels of animation.
Yeah.
Right? I'm getting the movement. I'm seeing if I'm sprinting. This is a silly way of handling sprint, but this is how I'm doing it. I'm seeing if I'm wearing a cloak. And then if I hit spacebar, switch, I'm just going to go between these 2 states.
Nice.
Now, if I was making this as an actual game, I'd polish this up. But the idea is to make a series of characters and rigs and body parts and clothing parts and all the rest of it that can just be dropped in. Probably as a TSCN, possibly as a GLTB. There's pros and cons to each version, right? But you could just drop them in. We don't want to make it scripted. We don't want to put in animation trees. We don't want to, make pre-blended files, because that's the kind of decision you want to be making on a moment-by-moment basis. Moment by moment. That's the kind of decision you want to be making moment by moment as a game designer, right? You don't want to have to work with our game. You want to work with the assets we're giving you.
It's always a challenge, because we could create a framework that anybody can drop into what they're working on. Of course, the issue with just making a framework is that it's quite rigid. It means that your particular game is going to be or have to fit our mold. and not anything
At
else.
that point, you're making our game, right?
Yeah.
And you're tweaking, which sure, I mean that's a way of working, but it's more convenient if you take these assets and decide I'm going to make a platform game, a dungeon crawl, or whatever it might be, right? A co-op builder. The idea is just to get some assets that can just go in and work. Mikey, do you want to show some Blendery stuff?
I can certainly show.
Do we have people, by the way? Because my YouTube is telling me there's no people.
It keeps spiking up. If you're here, say hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. We could be talking to the ether, in which case, hi, ether.
Hello, ether.
How are you doing? Right. I think I've still got the file. Yeah. So let's switch over to the main screen. There we go. So we've got our character here. A bit of a funny setup. I've just been playing around, creating different action groups to capture those animations. Let's make this area a bit bigger. So this is a run animation going. And then we've also got, if I select under here, but there's a workflow that you need to do. There we go. When it comes to using multiple actions, you need to make sure you're in pose mode, or at least have the armature selected in order to select different areas. So you can see at the moment, if I remove the rig, we have a character with lots of stuff on. And yes, it was originally a man mesh. So this does look like a lady you would not want to mess with at the moment.
I should point out, by the way, that the cloak belt is not weighted as well. It doesn't show the cloak.
Interesting. I should bear that in mind. So here we have a series of things. So we can, in a sense, be completely modular. You know, if this was, if we needed different arms, cybernetic arms or something like that, we could just add them in as part of this. And they would then animate with the rest of the mesh as well. And the same with the shoes. Now, we can't see the shoes at the moment, so let's turn the cloak off. And these are all, I tried to organize them as best possible. So under cloak, we turn that off. Let's turn the jeans on and the other cloak belt off. So now we've got a slightly different style again. And it took a while to try and get everything in an order. And you do have to watch how you order things, because with Blender, parenting means something. So that if you parent one object to another, it may break something else you've got going on, and it did, and that might be what's going wrong with the cloak belt that you were saying. Perhaps the parenting has, because it's several layers deep, broken its link to the armature. Armature and parents. If you're not careful, it all goes wonky very quickly. Now, where's the hair? I'm being completely blind. Head. Face long hair, so I can turn the long hair off, so we can have no hair. That is an option. There's not, sorry, there was just a naked body underneath. However, yeah, I overrode that.
You didn't want to be demonetized.
Low poly, and here we go. We've got the short hair on top as well. So lots of different models that you could do, and the shoes, they can be swapped out. I was showing that earlier. That's under feet, of course. I can hide those. I could give them wellies. I can. That's the beautiful thing about this. It's suddenly become highly modular. And yes, perhaps you don't want it looking quite like this. We and ahed earlier about perhaps making it smooth shaded instead.
Well, at the moment, we're still at the very, very early proof of concept. By the way, I've just seen a bunch of people jump in. Hello, people.
Hello.
We're talking about building an asset pack, or multiple asset packs for students and for just general game designers, specifically being able to work with Godot so that you could just not have to worry about converting everything. And we're looking into what goes into that. I quite like the smoothing. I think it's a really nice look.
I've also added a subdivision surface modifier at the moment. Now this, obviously these assets have just been put together as quickly as possible. And this is a great example actually about why...
I'm waving. I know Melicon can't see me. Hi, Melicon.
This here is a great example. See this flickering? Yes, we're having to stare at their backside, but this flickering here is exactly why there's a big argument in any 3D community about quad topology, because it's designed as a low poly mesh and not designed to have all this subdivision. It's designed to look like this. It really doesn't matter what's going on there. However, if you did want to do something with subdivisions, you can see there's pinching that happens when you shade it smooth. You get this horrible artifacting. This is why quad topology is important. However, it's not important with its original look. That's the important thing there. That looks amazing like that. Definitely keeping that. There we go.
Yep.
Back to normal. Let's show our faces again.
It's faces.
Hello.
So I like the fact that with the example I'm a few seconds behind watching over there. You've got the smooth t-shirt and the big blocky pants. It looks like he's stolen some robot pants.
Oh, can I show you this? So I was playing earlier. I can't do all of the things that I was playing earlier. One of the things was the hair. I applied a randomize to it and it ended up turning into more of a Medusa rather than an actual hairdo. But one of the things you can do, which I found funny, it may not be funny for everybody. It may just be funny for me. But if I select something like the jeans, they have a solidify modifier on them. So what you can end up doing is just making that a little bit larger, and then they got really big pants.
Yeah.
And I think I could do the same with this. Oh my word! So you could give your characters a fat suit very quickly.
I mean, you could.
I'm sorry. I had a lot of fun creating this character. And yes, I tried googly eyes.
Did try googly eyes.
I tried wonky eyes. I tried 3D eyes. I tried odd-sized eyes.
But here's the thing. If we figure out exactly how to do this, there's no reason why we couldn't make googly eyes as a pack later.
Oh, not at all. Yeah, all of this stuff is
the
possible.
idea is to make all of these assets use the same armature, use the same hierarchies, and just be as consistent as possible, so that they can just be plugged in, all work the same way, and modular. So we can get this asset, this asset, this asset. It means if I start making a course, I can say, okay, we're going to include these assets from these packs. They're available as part of this course. You can now go and expand them by going and getting, the cowboy pack, whatever it is. Yeah. By the way, I'm talking like we've got hundreds of packs. Right now, this is just a tech demo, right?
Yeah.
Shall I show off the tech demo again now that we actually have people in the thing?
Yeah. That'd be a good idea so people can see what's going on. Let me make sure you are full screen when you shared. I'll make sure that's full screen and you're live.
Okay, so very, very 20-minute code. Cube do kickabout style. We have 2 animations. There's no blending. And I can switch between characters. At the moment, the short hair isn't rigged entirely properly.
Oh, yeah.
But the advantage to all this is because it's all very modular, I can change this at runtime. Now, in this particular case, I'm just hiding and showing mesh bits. But there is nothing saying that you can't have a character customization where you've preloaded all the assets you need for a script, for a scene. And then when you go in, if the character puts something in the inventory, they'll just remove the cloak, and that's what they've got underneath, right? Like you can load it in and change it that way. What you can't do is change the actual mesh data. You can't paste in the mesh data to an existing mesh instance because we found out it messes up the weighting, the skinning. But, and again, this is like early prototype looking asset. The idea is we can get a whole bunch of stuff to make games that just work. The script for this is hysterically ugly, so I'm going to stop sharing that for now, but it's just an idea of the kind of direction we're going to go in. It also means that you don't have to start converting assets that have been designed for another engine and try and make them work in the way that God does things. In the same way that if you're making a scene with, I don't know, Kenny's 3D kitchen stuff, you don't have to worry about the origin for all the furniture is in the corner. As far as Godot's concerned, that means the center of gravity is in the corner, right? We can make it work specifically for Godot. We are considering releasing these as TSCN files, so you can just drop them into Godot. The downside to a TSCN file is that you have to have the same scene, the same file system, right? So you have to name things the way we've named them. The upside to it is we can just make sure it works. Like you put the scene in, here is the scene, right? The animations are all done and all the rest of it. We could do it as a GLTF. The animations still work and all the rest of it. It's just a couple more bits of work on your side, but it means you can put the assets wherever you need them.
Yeah, and of course, from the Blender to Godot aspect, there's nothing stopping me exporting a load of different varieties of model. At the moment, as you saw, they're just in one blend file. I swap between them. I've exported that. Jan's grabbed that and then able to then just use it.
Yep.
and then in Godot actually swap things around.
To answer Melicon's questions about spaceships, sure, why not? Right now, we're trying to get a look and a feel. This is the first time we've seen like the workflow work from Blender to Godot.
Yeah.
Mike showed me a very, very, very early proof of concept earlier today, and I looked at it and went, yep, that looks like it works. And then just before the stream went live, I had the files. I wrote a very quick script. Works fine.
I mean, character customization and customization in general is something that a lot of people want in a game. They want to be able to have their own characters. They want to be able to change things around and make them their own. Did you make yourself disappear?
No, my internet stopped.
Mine didn't.
Yep.
For once.
It's also a way that, okay, so a lot of these packs don't have swap out meshes, which is fine. They don't have to. The advantage to having swap out meshes is if we design like 20 heads, 20 tops, 20 jeans, 20 shoes, and all the rest of it, that's not 20 characters. That's a whole bunch of things you can do.
Yeah.
And with just a little bit of work of making the skin for each unique as opposed to one material, you can start putting textures in. At the moment, there's no UV wrapping.
Yeah.
Because that's always fun.
And at the moment, we are focused on low poly, as you probably gathered. And the reason for that is not only can we get an asset out quickly and test like today, it wouldn't have been possible to do it any other way. But also, it's more in line of being able to provide a series of assets that fit together.
And it came. I mean, part of this as well was I was looking at Cube Do Kickabout. I was like, how easy would it be for me to take some of these up-to-date assets or newer assets from Coturnius, say, or Kenny, and put them in? And the first thing I have to do is spend an hour shuffling the animations and the rigs and everything else around to make it work. Wouldn't it be great if I could just take this pack and know it'll work in Godot? We have plenty of things that work for Unreal, plenty of things that work for Unity. We're not saying, by the way, we wouldn't make them work for these as well. Like, there's nothing saying we'll export as TSCN and GLTB and whatever else. But it just means with the engine getting more and more support or more attention every day, and with Godot 4 in the corner that's getting a lot of people excited to finally try Godot, let's have some assets that people can just use.
Definitely. And when it comes to the other engines, creating a U asset or a Unity asset, and I don't know if there are any other engines we'd necessarily jump into at the moment, but that's pretty straightforward to do. Once you've built the asset, you've built it, you can export it and do with it what you want. As well as being low poly, they're probably going to be single material for the moment. We will experiment with texturing as well and see how that works. But one of the issues is, of course, if you swap out a texture, now you're talking about how it's mapped to each individual character, and that might break things. Have to play with it and see.
This is the thing. Like at this stage, we're still in the very, very early,
definitely.
like very faceted, very low poly thing. There's nothing saying that we couldn't make everything look smooth. It might mean that the actual topology has to be changed. But if that's the direction we go in, that's the direction we go in. They don't even have to look like they're all the same game style. But what's important to us is they have the same hierarchy and the same rigging.
Yeah.
Because that way, if we have a bunch of animations, or if we hire someone to make a bunch of animations, or we add in a whole bunch of other things, you can just have a template character, which has your rig and your animations, and you can just bring them in. And they'll just work.
And animation-wise, if we end up with, let's say, melee weapons, I mean, that works in a sci-fi setting just as it would work in a medieval setting. Yes, you might not have different, styles of sword, but lightsabers exist. So I mean, why not?
There's plenty of sci-fi tropes out there that have swords and blades.
Yeah.
Sure, why not? Or, I mean, switch out blade for plank of wood and you've got post-apocalyptic.
Yep. Put some nails in it. Job's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm really excited on where we can take this because of its modularity, because we're creating a system by which we can put extra meshes together. I don't know how well it will go for scale. One of the things we talked about was, well, what happens if you've got this big heavy dude? they're going to move. They're going to have a different gait to someone who's a lot smaller. So perhaps we end up with sets of animations that fit various body types.
There's also a lot to be said for adding constraint. I mean, I talked about this when I made the creativity course. There's a lot to be said for adding constraints to your creative process. These are the constraints we're working on.
Yeah.
So we could just remove the idea of separate hair entirely. It's a head, right?
Yeah.
Here's a head with this hair. This is a head with this hat. We don't have to make each one separately. The way that Mikey made it is, let's put in a few more assets. Can we swap between them?
Yeah. All proof of concept at the moment. Like the robe and the trousers and jeans. It's just one of those things. You chuck them in and test them. And I think this is something that's important that we do, as we often preach. If you're making something, if you're making a level, if you're making a character, if you're making a spaceship, test it out first, actually see if you can block it out, in this case, character-wise. All we needed was a couple of animations. Can they swap out? We needed an armature that multiple models share. That's working. And we needed multiple meshes to be able to swap them out. And as I was alluding to earlier, there's absolutely no reason why we couldn't swap that out with a completely new mesh that was a humanoid lizard. I mean, very, very straightforward to do.
Except for the tail. It also helps if we got, like, we were talking to somebody a couple of days back who's interested in making a course for us in Godot, and we're not going to talk about exactly what that is yet because it's still very early prototype, and and one of the stumbling blocks is I don't have the assets. Like, I can go make them. Wouldn't it be easier if we just had a library of assets and we said, hey, do you want to use some of these?
Yeah.
Like, just run with them.
Yeah, having assets is a difficult thing. We run into that all the time. It's one of the things with the new Blender series that assets are going to be provided so that when you're doing the UV unwrapping, you're not building something and then UV unwrapping it. We just start at the point at which we're going to do that lesson from. Same with texturing. There'll be a model there that will go ahead and texture. Default cube all the way.
Is this a time to discuss the potential or the probable course that this asset thing is leading to in Blender?
Probably. I mean, it's obviously a character thing,
right?
So when it comes to characters, I've been playing a lot around with rigging at the moment for the sort of like the introductory part of the course, because when it comes to learning how to rig something is a completely different thing from learning how to model a character. Generally, you would have already made your character and then you go into rigging it. So this is an exploration as well into game-ready character creation, essentially. But on top of just creating a hero asset, actually designing it in such a way that you don't have to keep repeating yourself all the time. Once you've got a base mesh, why not use it to create multiple meshes from, and then in the game engine, actually use them to, use the game engine's coding systems to swap things out really, really quickly.
It also gives us a few other options as well. Like we were talking about, and I don't know if this works necessarily with a modular approach, but we were talking about there's nothing stopping us from exporting side-on images and isometric images as well, and releasing them as 3D and 2D packs.
Yeah, I think there's. I can't remember the add-on's name, but there is an add-on for Blender that will enable you to take sort of isometric shots or orthogonal shots and take like 8 of them around your model, so you can have a more Clash of Clans style 2D image that you can bring into mobile gaming, which is fantastic. Or of course, you can put the camera on the side, and there you go. You've got a 2D platformer. You just render out a couple of images or the images of them running, and there you go. You've got your sprite sheet that you can import.
It also helps if we make some grid map pieces, because they can also be tile map pieces. That's another thing I'd like to look at as well. At the moment, we're not there because the characters are more technically challenging because of the challenge of getting the animation, the rigging right.
Yeah, characters are... there's a reason why everybody wants to make brilliant characters. It's because they're blooming hard to make.
Right. But it'd be nice as well to have a bunch of like scenery assets and furniture assets and props that fit with whatever aesthetic we end up going with, including spaceships, as Melicon says, but are set up for Godot. Just because when you're using someone else's assets, and I mean, we have this problem in Canopy Cars, right? I'm using the cars from one creator and the road from another, and the curb of the road is 8 inches high.
Yeah.
Because I had to scale the road up to fit the cars. But if we're building everything around the same kind of requirements, around the same technical specifications, we know that this will fit. We know that these tiles will have the origin in the center. We know that, it will work with this engine, with this pack,
Well,
or with any other pack.
there is a reason why whenever you're modeling, you're often told modeled to the real world scale. I mean, it's very easy to think, well, I can scale it to any size after the fact. Why do it from the beginning? The reason you do it from the beginning is so it fits together within a world. Now, that's not to say that's something you'd always do. If you were making a space game, okay, Elite Dangerous aside and those more simulation-based games, but if you're making a space game, you might not want to model the sun the real size because you're going to have scaling issues. It's going to look very odd. If you just want your planets and stars to be a representation of a solar system, then that's different from being able to fly around them like you would in something like Elite Dangerous or Star Citizen.
I think I missed why anyone would want to make a full scale sun.
You just scale up a sphere very big, turn its emission value very high.
Particles, mate. Just do particles.
That's the supernova at the end.
So yeah, that's an exciting little project we've been working on right now, and I'm quite interested to see where it goes. And this is one of those things where I really want to be helping. I'm still knee deep in video editing right now, but I think most of my help's going to be in the scenery stage because I don't have any rigging or animation. I would love to get a bunch of basic animations for a pack. Not I want to say get. I'd like so we had idle, one idle, one run, one walk. We can always add to them later, but just default things.
Almost your any standard controls. We want to make sure that a standard game can be created, whether or not the character's running, crouching, crawling even. Who knows?
I mean, I would say idle, walk, run, use, pick up, possibly some sort of attack, probably some sort of attack, and then some sort of death state. Everything else can be able.
Oh no! Perhaps Yan has gone properly now.
Again.
Oh, he's back. Hey!
City animations would be great, but are they priority for the first pass? I think we have to be very, very rigid about what this means. I mean, you and I are both very good at feature creep.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
But what does a successful first pack look like? And it might be, and I'm thinking aloud, so don't hold me to this. It might be that the first pack is just a framework pack, and that's free, right? That's just
definitely
a mesh, a couple of people, some basic actions, the rigging, and it works. And then from there on in, everything else is a plugin.
Quite possible. From what I want to do is be able to give these to people for free so that they can use them in the real world. That's really important, and actually give us valuable feedback as to why it didn't work in your game. Oh, you didn't include a jump animation. Oh, okay, brilliant. My character just goes rigid and bounces up and down and then continues T-pose. So all of these sort of things. A few months back, no, it must be nearly a year now, I released a script just to export stuff, and I released it to the wild, and then I got some feedback, really good feedback as well, and the chap was trying to use it with animation stuff, and I was scratching my head and go, well, I didn't create it with animation in mind, so it's not going to export any armatures. In fact, I set it up in a very safe manner by it would only export meshes. And unfortunately, the way that armatures work and the way that his scene was set up, the script was not compatible. You'd never have gotten the animations out of it. So again, it's all when we start getting more complex in our nature, we need frameworks. We need to make sure that hierarchies are all the same. We need to make sure that things are named consistently as well. So in the code, when you type torso or chest or spine 005, you know that's referring to the neck, that sort of thing.
I feel like...
Hi, Mythology. How you doing?
Oh, I don't see Mythology. There's Mythology. Hi, Mythology. I feel like any kind of project like this, we really want to be very, very clear what is in scope, what isn't.
It's definitely going to be a simple thing to begin with, 1 or 2 characters with 1 or 2 different bits of clothing. It's okay. I ran into that smooth, totally professional. Now I'm going to brag about it.
I feel like any kind of project like this is all about very, very clear goals and very clear limits, really, as to what this project is. So the very first project, we don't keep adding and adding and adding and adding. We decide we're going to have, 5 heads, 5 torsos, 5 legs, 5 shoes, 5 animations, whatever it is. Like, these are arbitrary numbers. But the idea is we can then start saying, okay, it takes us this long to make this pack.
Yeah.
We now know how long it takes to make a pack. We can start adding more packs to it. And if we've designed it correctly, you can take as many of these as you like and just put them together and they'll just work.
Yeah. And of course, if once we've actually got this is really a prototype pack that we're putting together to begin with. Once that prototype pack is live, we'll let you guys know. And obviously from there, we can probably start taking votes or suggestions.
Oh, yeah.
Money towards, doing more themed stuff.
And I think it's important. We don't have to solve design for every game.
No, there will be limitations. It's the standard thing. If you're making a pack of assets, they will be more generic than perhaps you'd want otherwise.
Yeah, and like we could do the very faceted low poly look. We could do a smooth low poly look. We could do a much more intricate one. But I think we just have to solve one. Like, we don't have to make the perfect pack for every game. If nothing else, good prototype assets are good prototype assets. Like, if you want to make a serious indie game, you're probably going to be tweaking or making assets anyway.
Yeah, and I'd love to make hundreds and hundreds of asset packs. I mean, it's a lot of fun. But I've got stuff to record. Speaking of recording, and the grease pencil section by Paul will be coming out very, very soon.
Sorry, I just read Malicon's comment.
Cyberpunk, so anybody can make a better game.
In fairness, the assets on Cyberpunk are amazing.
Yeah, so it's an absolutely
pretty game. When it's not bugged out, it's a pretty game.
Yes, it's absolutely fantastic when it's not turned itself inside out.
Have you played it?
No, I haven't. I've seen lots of so Curtis Holt, a YouTuber who does a lot of Blender stuff, has he was talking about how he goes around certain games and takes basically photos within the game. If a game has a photo mode, it's a brilliant opportunity to create some amazing artwork. And he was sharing some of the stuff that he'd done. And I was like, blooming hell, this game does look pretty from the right angles.
It's stunning. And the people who worked on it clearly poured their heart and soul into it for years. The bugs are annoying. The weird way they handled marketing and release copies and review copies was really weird. Like, reviewers weren't allowed a copy of the full game. They had to review pre-made content until launch day. Like, that just doesn't feel good. Some of the game design decisions, like the way street cred works, don't get. It's just counter. Like, you're not cool enough to buy these pants. You don't have enough street cred to buy the pants. Like, I'm buying the pants to look cool. I'm not. But anyway, although there is something we should talk about that we did this week.
Yes. So speaking of games, are you going to say Divinity Original Sin 2?
I am going to say Divinity Original Sin 2. So Mikey, our friend Sam, and myself decided we're going to try a few games of this, and it has a really interesting multiplayer. So if you don't know the game, you take the traditional CRPG, so you've got a party of wonderful characters, and the camera's up here somewhere. Sometimes it's isometric. But this particular one, you can move around and zoom in on things. Very lovely. And it's not set in a Tolkien verse. That's always fun in a fantasy novel. There's very specific lore and races, and it does have elves, but the elves here are very, very, very downtrodden, and they like to eat people because then they can get their memories, and there's a whole like thing to it. And they have some fascinating ideas, and one of them is you don't have to be doing the same thing at the same time. You don't even have to be in the same place. You're all in a party, but if you want to, you could be at cross purposes. You could even attack each other if you really wanted to. And part of the way they deal with that is if Mikey's character is talking to an NPC, I can come and listen in, or I can wander off. If I get into combat, unless Mikey comes within range, he's not in combat. He can go do his own thing. Which did lead to one point where I'm in combat. I'm just going to hold my action until Mikey can get close because I really need backup right now. Anyway, very early in the game, we've left the tutorial area. We're on this big prison island, and there's these poor innocent elves being shaken down by these hardened criminals and being threatened. And we step up and we scare them away. And they're like, "Oh, come! We know a safe place. Come, follow the elf. Nice safe place. Here's the resistance." And there's this little fortune teller, and I'm there, and Sam's there, and Mikey's there, and Sam
and I have my fortune read.
Yeah, Mikey's playing this lovely, happy-go-lucky little illusionist who likes to do songs and dances and has a little bit of a dark side in her, but she's lovely and she's bubbly. And Mikey's playing her because he wants a lovely, bubbly time. So Mikey goes to have his fortune read, and I'm listening in for a bit, and there's this, "Oh, you might have a darkness in your future." I was like, "Fine, I'm going to go with Sam and see if there's any stuff around that we can use to, stay healthy and alive." I come back 2 minutes later. Mikey has gone quiet in Discord. I come back 2 minutes later and I listen to the conversation, and Mikey has 8 possible dialogue choices.
Which is quite a few dialogue options, but...
And they are, kill them all, 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 kill them all. I'm like, what did you do? I don't know which one to pick. Well, I think you're probably going to have to pick kill them all, aren't you? So he picks it, and we're in combat, and Sam's like, why am I, what?
Why am I killing the good people?
Like, so Sam's legitimately like,
oh, suspense.
Casting regeneration on me, which is very bad on skeletons. Oh, I froze. I'm back.
Yep.
Meanwhile, I'm undead. Their healer immediately starts casting regeneration on me, which is really annoying. And I'm like, I think the only way out is to murder them all. And so we end up murdering this band of innocent people because Mikey's character
has a dark side and decided to basically attack everybody.
Yeah. But what's great about it is Mikey's personal experience was the same as his character's personal experience. I didn't want to do that. Something inside my character made the choice for me. This is not the choice I wanted. And my character was saying, if you're going to go around murdering everybody, I can't trust you. You might have to stay here, which is exactly what I was saying to Mikey. You're not allowed to talk to people.
I like the fact. I like the fact that every game I seem to play, I manage to troll the hell out of, even if I don't intend to, and I don't know where it comes from.
It was wonderful because then Sam was like, "Well, do we have a save game we can go back?" It's like, no, this is the consequence of the story. Like, Mikey didn't mess up. His character has this thing in him that wants him to kill the innocent. I think we just have to live with it. Or not in my case. I was undead. By the way, an NPC who's constantly casting regenerative heal on an undead character is really irritating.
Yeah. How do you heal you, Jan? Chuck poison bottles at you.
Oh, that was fun. So Divinity also has systems-based gameplay, right? So liquids can carry an electric charge. So if you're standing in a puddle and someone casts lightning, zap, 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 which means if Mikey runs into close battle, which happened at one point, and I was about to cast lightning, and he's in a puddle, maybe I can't cast that right now because I don't want to fry Mikey. Mikey sees my health dropping and dropping and dropping. It's like, how do you heal? It's like, I heal through poison. I have poison. I'll throw it. Don't throw it. Throws it. Don't throw it because poison is flammable, and I'm next to.
Oh well.
It was great. It was fantastic.
That's typical me, though. Unfortunately,
it was a great learning experience, and it was entirely in keeping with these completely out of their depth characters. One of whom is this lovely entertainer who happens to, occasionally want to kill everyone for reasons she doesn't quite understand.
I can't. You guys were going, how do we stop her? And what? We have no choice but to side with her.
Dang it, Mikey! I didn't mean to. I just wanted to know my fortune.
Just the so part of that you didn't see was during the quest itself. There was basically you get 3 choices, and I didn't know what my player stats were or what would go towards what. So I picked the first one and got it. I picked the second one and got it. Picked the third one and it just went failed. Sam goes, "Uh-oh, what does failed mean? What have you failed, Mike?" And then you come and join the conversation. I think we have to kill people.
We did. We ended up killing a lot of people. So yeah, that was a really interesting piece of game design because it completely threw us. The plot wasn't as predictable, and it fit perfectly with the character. And the reason that I'm reminded of that is Cyberpunk, in my experience, didn't have those moments. Like by the time I got to the big reveal 2/3 of the way through, where I get a whole bunch of exposition, I don't care. I don't care that Keanu Reeves is talking to me.
He doesn't care that much. He's not going to say anything more on it.
I don't care that Keanu Reeves is talking to me. I just want to drive around and listen to music. Like that was the point I was at. So yeah, we played Divinity Original Sin 2. We didn't play Cyberpunk, and we've been designing Asset Pack. I'm saying that because I can see Daz. Hi Daz. We're making Asset Packs. Well, we're prototyping an Asset Pack.
Yes. One of the things that I was I'm going to say amazed with was actually the character customization within Divinity Original Sin. That's probably one of the genesis, or we've been thinking about this for a while, but when you play a game that's got awesome character customization, but it's not Skyrim level, is it?
No.
Where you can change every little facet, and let's face it, in general, unless you're trolling yourself, you're going to end up with a pretty narrow standard of how you customize your character. But because the customizations were more unique, so there were only maybe, I don't know, 8 different pieces of clothing that can be worn, they suited the character and they suited the style that the character was going to play in, whether they were going to be a stealthy person who sneaks around and backstabs everybody, or a powerful mage, or whatever it happened to be. I mean, I'm not big on the RPG scene. I've got a lot of holes in my knowledge with it, but this was one of the best character screens. I was actually sat there going, "This is so cool," because the characters were remarkably different from one another, even though it was the same main base character.
I've just solved that hair issue.
All the characters will be bald.
Okay, so if I share this,
dude, let me make it full screen. Nice.
You remember just before the stream, you said, "Did the hair work?" Because I accidentally moved it, and I don't know if the weighting went through.
Yep.
It didn't, and because the character now has collision, he's been pushed up slightly, and their hair hadn't, and was inside his head.
There we go.
Yay!
So you can have bald dude, long-haired lady, or
could be long-haired dude. My hair was way longer than that when I was up to the age of 35. One thing I did notice, by the way, is because of the way we're doing it, you see how the legs poke out in the cloak?
That's a deliberately stylistic choice.
Like tote.
I haven't designed legs, therefore it's a stylistic choice. You know how hard a dress is to try and animate.
No, I do. I mean, I get it. I think you've done wonderfully. So yeah, I'm excited about that. And the person we were talking to who's looking to make what happened?
Nothing.
The person we were talking to who's going to be making content with us for Godot was excited about it. Why are you pulling that face?
What face?
It just came up over there as well.
Yeah, I was pulling the face at me pulling the face.
And I think it's intriguing. It's also something where if we're really clear and document the structure, we can start getting other people to help make content for us.
Yes, definitely. Once there's a system in place, then there are rules, and then people can be design around those rules. I don't think there's going to be many instances where you can't just scale everything up or down if you've got a large character versus a small one. Just as I was talking about earlier, it'll be the gates that ends up being wrong.
Mm.
A huge character walking with a normal walk animation of someone that's around 2 meters tall, or between 1.5 and 2 meters tall, will look considerably different.
Well, I think there's also there's an argument to be made for a quadruped system, but once you've got biped and quadruped, that's a lot you can do.
You could do spiders. You put 2 of the quadrupeds together.
That's not how spiders walk. But you could do horses, you could do dogs, you could do cats, even though cats don't run like horses.
You get 1 cat, you get 2 cats, you turn 190 degrees and slam it into the other one. You get a quadricat.
If you get a can and you get second can, you get 2 can.
Hey!
Don't you cheesh me? You're the one who's playing with cats.
It's a deadly art form.
So yeah, I mean, the question I've got for the people watching, because I know a lot of people are watching this after the fact, because we did tell people late, because I got the assets late. What kind of visual style do you want? Do you like the faceted style? Would you prefer a smoothie style? Do you want to show them the smoothie style in the blenders again?
Yeah, I can do that. Oh, it's actually still playing. So this will be the sort of the faceted style, and actually is a much closer look at a much closer look at the character anyway. So very quick noddy character to get everything across, and we can swap things out. So we can,
for our American friends, noddy means like a Mickey Mouse operation. So we can have. By the way, he's got this weird lower back thing going on his chest.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. The joys of low poly modeling. So we can swap out shoes. So some of these things only have 1 mesh with them at the moment. So the arms only 1 mesh. There's no different style of arms: lady arms, man arms, skinny arms.
Do you have smooth shading on the head there?
No smooth shading at the moment.
So what happens if you turn that on?
So I'll select all of these objects and turn on smooth shading. So this is still low poly, but smooth. Now, there will have to be some changes around there. So one of the things you can do when you smooth shade, and I'll have to do this on every single mesh, but you can turn on things like auto smooth so that any sharp corners actually remain sharp. So you get a bit more definition on the character.
I have 3 auto smooth and it works for all of them.
Oh, you've just taught me something.
Auto smooth? You type in auto smooth when you go to search. Will it work with everything you got selected?
Nope.
Oh.
That might be something different. Last time I checked, this little checkbox here, you had to you could toggle it in code, but that's less enjoyable. But of course, the other thing we can do is we can take our mesh and maybe subdivide it as well. So it's going to be slightly higher poly count, but obviously this would have to be slightly redesigned because the shirt's designed to...
This is more like looking at the basic outline. Like I like the smooth look because it's not one you see in every pack.
Yeah.
Obviously, as you get in close, like you get this uncanny valley effect on the face this way.
Yes, that's one of the reasons why I actually like if it is a low poly face, having it really low poly.
Or we can just put little eyes on it.
Googly eyes. So we can swap the hair out as well. I'm going to put long hair on. Boop. There we go. There's some long hair. And of course, we can swap out. So we can go to the torso area. And then minimize these down. Torso, turn on the cloak, turn off the shirt. And we've got trousers here as well. So we can turn off those jeans. And there we go. We've got a different character altogether. And the beauty is you can just keep adding to the system. Bit of clipping there.
Yeah, long hair is going to clip through some of the clothes.
Yes, I mean this cloak was actually designed before long hair even came in. So this is one of the choices we've got. Do you just allow clipping like that to happen? I mean, lots of games do allow things like that to happen. all the time. Even AAA games, you see, Red Dead Redemption was a great example, where your character, they sit down in a chair, anything that's on their back just clips straight through the back of the chair.
I froze for all of that, but yeah, it does. No, I think that'd be a nice look. So, question for the people listening: which is more exciting to you, an asset pack of the facety low poly, or asset pack of smooth low poly? Bear in mind they'd have to be designed slightly differently, although we're still very early in the prototype stage, so I don't feel too bad about that. Like, I still think we're still in work of proof of concept.
Yeah,
But what would you guys be more excited about picking up?
you just have to watch for horrible shading artifacts when you're smooth shading something. That's the main
But
thing.
if that's inherent in the early design, then we can start working around that,
definitely.
right? And it's a bit like if we subdivide a whole bunch, then we know that there are going to be issues there.
Yeah, AAA is not an option.
No, it's a series of letters.
Womp, womp, womp.
So I had quite a late nap and a lot of coffee, and now I need the restroom.
Okay.
So mythology is saying the earlier choice, which I'm thinking is the faceted face choice.
So the more traditional low poly style look.
Which makes sense.
Yep, that's a good point. When they're faceted, they look like they're interim assets.
Mm.
And I suppose that's one of the things. So we were talking about earlier, the fact that trying to get different asset packs that actually mesh together well can be very difficult. However, low poly stuff is more forgiving with that.
You also got quite a lot of give with here. I'm going to show my screen real quick. Once you get with an engine, right? Like right now, I've got this character. And I can open the skin material, and I could make the skin very, very shiny. For example, if we wanted to, like we could,
Yes, we can go for a green lizard or whatever,
or something that feels like the skin tone for our particular game. Admittedly, that's not going to work with shiny stuff like that. I mean, we could even, if we UV mapped it, we could put in that. I don't want to put in refraction, but we're not going to do that. Like, there's a lot of options. Once you've got the asset in game, you can start changing how metallic it looks. Like, I kind of like the idea of a very, very, like, almost Lego set look with these things.
One of the other questions, of course, would be as to whether or not, even if textures are used at all in them, or whether they will be literally flat shaded, essentially cell shaded throughout. So one of the advantages of having a texture set is you can have detail that otherwise wouldn't exist. It is slightly more optimized, so every time you have an extra material. So if you stay on him for the moment.
Oh, sorry. Press the wrong button. Yeah.
Ta-da! So if you stay on him for a moment, we've got the hair, we've got the skin, we've got the jeans, we've got the belt, we've got the shoes, which actually share the same material with the belt, and then we've got the jeans themselves. So that's 6 materials on that particular object. That means there's 6 times as many draw calls, which will slow down a game running. Maybe not a basic game like this, but by the time you've got lots of other things going on, it's something to be aware of, that those 6 materials are going to increase your draw calls. Whereas if you just had 6 pixels that you could swap between colors, that's far more optimized when it comes to that.
Yeah.
So there are benefits and drawbacks, and the benefits of having just materials is you can go in like Jan is doing now and simply drag the material and change it very quickly. If it was a texture, that's not a case of doing that because it's UV mapped to a certain place on a 2D image. So there's a big argument both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, when it comes down to the end of it, whilst you're prototyping, the quicker way of having material swaps is often better. And when you're in final stage, where you can bake those materials down to individual textures and just have your models optimized at that point. It's great to have models that are optimized from the word go, but sometimes it can have its drawbacks, especially if you want to rapidly prototype things.
So
So,
I'm just making this a little more interesting to look at.
Yep. Yeah, Daz raises a good point. The faceted look, although it has been overdone in the last few years, it's quite diverse and can cover a few different things. And one of the other, just expanding on that, is because the faceted look is low poly is quite accessible. It's quite a easy thing. Easy is a dangerous word. It's quite a straightforward thing to achieve as a beginner. So in theory, you should be able to create, maybe within a couple of months of learning how to model, you should be able to create some quite convincing assets that would fit in with any other low poly assets.
I mean, you also have a small amount of, like, if I go to the skin here, there is stuff I can do with like the parameters. Am I frozen? No.
Nope.
Where's the other?
Whilst you're looking for that, Melicon has a question. Can Godot do a mesh merge? I presume by that you mean take multiple meshes and generate just one in-game for optimization?
I mean, you can get a mesh array, and there's no reason why you couldn't do this in code, but I'm not sure how good it would look. Like, by making this tune, we turned down a lot of the facety look. Like, I like the facety look, I just feel like it's massively overdone. By tuning this, I get rid of a lot of the shading information on the face, and I sort of get round it. Like, that looks a lot rounder. I mean, admittedly, it looks rounder because the camera's in the wrong place.
Well, one of the other things, of course, is these characters are based around roughly human proportions. There's no reason why we couldn't go for a more, what's it called? Chibi look, where you've got big heads. We could go for bobbleheads. We could go for a very stylized look as well. So maybe you have a character that's got a huge, great, big, strong jaw, and he's the hero, or you know, or Pixar it and have very exaggerated features.
Well, work because it's mesh weighted.
It might work. I might give it a go.
Tried it.
Michael asks, so not me. What are you guys planning to make? So you've obviously joined us a bit later in the stream. We are talking about our Canopy Characters asset pack, which is just in the prototyping stages at the moment. We're just running through what's going on here. Jan's put together a little scene where he's used the modular. I'm going to call it a modular character because it is a modular character that I created earlier on today, and we can swap out the animations, we can swap out the meshes on it. And yes, we're at this stage at the moment where we're still very white boxing, very prototype stage, just trying to get the features right. Because what you don't want to do is go too far down any path without knowing, oh, if you do that particular thing. Hierarchy was a big one. Now, fortunately, it appears that the hierarchy that I've got in Blender, for maybe the first time in months, works first time over in Godot for Jan.
But that's the result of a lot of trial and error, right?
Yeah.
So this is the idea is coming up with a very modular character pack, so we can start adding more and more things to it that will just work in Godot. So you can just drop it in and it will work. And you can, like, this is a very, 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 this is a 10-minute script. There's no animation tree blend. There's no animation tree in here. There's no blending of animations. The look is literally pick the 8 directions you can walk in and look in that direction. There's no linear interpolate. It's just go that way. But
yeah,
as a proof of concept character, also the sprint is ridiculously fast. As a proof of concept character, that's not bad. In fact, I might turn down the sprint.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what Jan and I have done over the past couple of days, mainly today, is more of an asset jam. Can we get these assets working? And again, this isn't a game. This is a showcase scene just to see if the assets work how we'd expect them to. Yes,
fast, isn't it?
getting run speed right is incredibly difficult to
Well,
make it.
also ordinarily you'd blend between the animations and
Yeah.
you'd linear interpolate to accelerate and decelerate. Like that's your speed. Like this is very, very, very simple. But it's really just a question of can we switch out rigged assets on the fly, which would allow us to, one, have items that characters can put on and take off, two, have character customization, and three, have a whole bunch of NPCs and PCs that just work because they all work on the same animation, like the same rig.
Yes.
You can just have them all working on the same template character, instance in one, drop in the assets you want, and it works. And when I say drop in the assets you want, if I take a look at my file system, I'm just going to open the Canopy character. So at the moment, it's cloak and no hair and all the rest of it, but I can take off cloak and I can put on jeans and I can put on shirt, and these are just in here. And if I instance in long hair works and will follow the head. All right, it's modular. So anything that's in the skeleton that is loaded in as one of these scenes with the right skin information is just going to work in Godot. That means that we can say, okay, so here's a bunch of animations you can load into your animation player. You now have access to them. They'll work with anything that works with this rig with these parameters. Like anything you've got on this pack will just work, and that allows us to build this as big as we need to.
I mean, I can see this being pretty amazing for generating, as you've already mentioned, NPCs of just random stuff. But also, if you needed to create like the King's Guard or something along those lines, you could have a series of standard assets, maybe have larger ones and smaller ones, but ultimately you can create a pretty convincing group of characters that all work together without having them look all the same every time.
I'm not being very silly. Don't mind me.
Okay, you've got a grin on your face. I'm looking forward to seeing what.
I've just given an emissive shirt.
Okay. It's a very glowy shirt now, a very red shirt.
Well, it's a very bright scene, so you can't really see it. But if I turn down the lighting, but that's the other thing is it gives us a lot of leeway as to what kind of visual style your game can be. And it will work great with a 2D game if we then export all of these animations side on or isometric, probably using some sort of fancy plugin for Blender. Then you've got a bunch of 2D assets that will work as well. They won't have the same kind of modularity because that's going to be annoying. I mean, unless we start using the 2D skeleton system and make like paper cutouts, in which case that's probably not the right pack. But yeah, I think that's a thing.
Really excited to see how that comes together. And ultimately, what we want to be able to do is get this pack out to everybody soon. And then it will be a case of people trying it out, seeing how it works in games, giving us feedback. Does it work in, a sort of Diablo 3 style top-down camera? Does it work from a first-person camera point of view? Who knows whether that would be suitable or not?
As long as we have enough versatility in the assets, I think people can make all kinds of games, right?
Yeah.
Because you could use this in a platformer, you could use this in an RPG, you could use this in a hack and slash, you could use this in a stealth game, you could use this on a boat, you could use it with a goat. There's a lot you can do with this.
I know for third person versus first person, often animations have to be done differently. They can look really boring, essentially. It's a stylistic choice, but I've seen things like Call of Duty. The actual reload animation makes no sense in third person. If you actually watch it being done, the arms are moving into stupid positions, unrealistic positions.
Yeah,
but you need to do that because of the first person angle that the camera has.
I mean, first person mode should be pretty doable in a realistic way, depending on the kind of animations we have.
Yeah.
The real trick is going to be camera bob. Like if you put the camera where the head is every time it moves, that's going to make you feel sick.
Static camera.
So yeah, we're at the very early stages of putting together the first asset pack. And the idea is making it as modular as we can and as consistent as we can and able to just work in Godot. Because I think that's going to really help make a whole bunch of content.
And there is a reason, by the way, why our basically our first asset pack will be a character one, and that's because they are the most challenging ones, the ones that are most difficult to get to work together all the time. A static one, if it like buildings and pieces like that, you can usually just import, move the origin, and that's usually the end of your woes if it's a physics based thing, or you can just construct the thing that you're trying to make anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I can make basic, wall pieces. They probably won't look as good as Mikey's, but I can do it. But rigging a character and good animation is a skill in itself, right? There's a whole bunch that goes on in there.
Yeah, and I learned a load today about parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Not my children, but actually within Blender.
I learned about not parenting your children today too.
Yeah.
I think we're coming up towards the end. We've gone a little over. So does anyone have more questions, concerns, thoughts, comments, interpretive dances, or jingles?
It doesn't obviously it doesn't have to be about what we've just talked about. It could be something else, preferably related
to the company and what we're doing. Ask me advice of, I really like this person. What should I do? Like, I'm not qualified to answer that question.
We are not relationship advisors.
Also not financial relationship advisors.
Or any, no. So I'm looking forward to playing another round of Original Sin on Wednesday, is it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Who knows what antics I'll accidentally get up to.
Well, actually, no, we might be playing a pen and paper this week.
Ooh, nice.
I have to read the rules for it, though.
Do I need
to read the rules for it?
Do I need to get a pen and some paper?
No, we'll probably be playing Roll20. Well, we've always played these pen and paper games.
Okay. Oh, that thing. Yes, I know the one you're on about.
Nailed it. Dan says, possibly pop the Discord and Facebook link up for people's thoughts and conversations. Yeah, that's true. Completely separate FPS rig for the arms you should prefer, apart from the stylistic choice for all titles. Those are 2D for the player. Very cool. What system? Oh, I just got a whole bunch of things all in one go. I think my thing just slowed down. Hi, my gosh. Yeah, we've got a lot of. I mean, we're still at the very, very early stages. Like there's still some clipping. We haven't really settled on a look yet, although I think it's a very solid start. I still like the smooth look personally, but it's just me.
Oh, have you paused?
I think so.
There we go, you're back.
Melicon says, what system? But I don't know what he's asking. Oh, what system for Divinity Original Sin? Or, what system for the pen and paper? Blades in the Dark, specifically Scum and Villainy.
Scum and Villainy.
Which is a wonderful system of role-playing games where the DM doesn't have to do any prep, which is my kind of game to DM. And is very story-based and player-based. And Scum and Villainy is set somewhere between Star Wars and Firefly, which Mikey still hasn't seen. You have to go watch the entire season of Firefly and the movie now.
I've been looking for it on all the free streaming services because
It's on Netflix.
I'm at Serenity, the film.
Oh, watch the season first.
It's on Netflix. Awesome.
I think Firefly's on Netflix.
I'll have to have a look later.
Yep.
Shame on him? You mean shame on him, don't you?
All right.
I should wear the cone of shame.
I think that is a good place to end right now.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. I'm really excited about this characters pack.
And I'm Jan. Wait, what?
No.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody. We're very excited about that and all the other stuff we're making and the courses. And yeah, it's awesome.
Nice.
So, shall we do the bye thing now?
Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening, and we'll see you this time next week. Well, an hour earlier. Bye.
Bye.